Today, I'm going to be talking about 12 lessons that I've learned in 12 years of owning my gym. If you don't know me, I'm Matt Banwart. My wife, Caitlin, and I own Red Wolf CrossFit in Huntington Beach, California. And we started this podcast with one goal in mind, and that was to make fitness education accessible, engaging, and effective for everyone. So I've owned my gym in Huntington Beach now for 12 years, and we're going on our 13th. Yay. So thank you for everybody who came out for the 12-year anniversary party. There were so many people there. Really appreciate all of my members and all the hard work you guys have been putting in and for all your support over the years. So can't thank you guys enough. Huge shout out to you. And this one is for you. These are the 12 lessons that I've learned, and they're all fitness related or coaching related. So I'm just going to go ahead and just spin them off really quick. And you can decide whether or not that you actually want to stick around and listen for the details. And if not, no worries, go about your day. So number one is cadence, not consistency wins. Number two is build your base. And we'll be specifically talking about the importance of the aerobic system. Number three, we're going to talk about scaling up, which is about tailoring the fitness journey to each client. Number four, we're going to talk about the role of community in fitness. Number five, we're going to talk about adapt and overcome. Number six is stay injury free. Number seven is the edge of education. Number eight is nutrition essentials. Number nine is coaching with empathy. Number 10 is track progress for data-driven results. Number 11 is lead by example. And number 12, we're going to be wrapping things up with learn from wins and setbacks. So let's get right into it so we don't waste any time. So cadence, not consistency wins. Now, I've done an entire podcast on this, and I can't remember what episode it is, so I'll just give you a quick lowdown, but this is one of the most important things I've learned, especially in the last year. And because CrossFit, well, not CrossFit, but the fitness realm in general is, all big on consistent, be consistent, but no one really clearly defines what that term actually means, because you can be consistently not showing up to the gym, and guess what? You're being consistent. You can be consistently eating fast food, and guess what? You're technically being consistent. So that's why I really learned that the words that we use matter, and that's why I prefer the word cadence. Now, cadence is the backbone of any fitness journey or any goal in general, and cadence simply means is doing the right things the right way at the right time for the right amount of time. So I just found that what I learned is that when I'm more specific about doing these things in that specific order, that I definitely make better progress, not only as a coach, as a business owner, but as a husband and a dad and everything else in between. So the clients who make the most progress, that at least that I have worked with, we talk a lot about cadence. If you ever worked with me one-on-one, you know how big I am on I hate wasting time. So that's why we do the right things. And then when I coach you, I also make sure that you're doing them the right way, because obviously if you do them with incorrect mechanics, you can get injured. Doing things the right way at the right time. So timing is a really big thing, because for example, if you're, doing a set of 5 back squats and you're resting 10 minutes between sets, you're not having enough muscle tissue breakdown or micro tears in order to actually make strength progress, and for the right amount of time. And this is actually the most important thing, because we control a lot of the variables in there. But the one thing that, especially as a coach, that's the hardest thing for me to control is not only what's going outside the gym, but how long you actually stick with something. I can't tell you how many times I've worked with people, whether it's nutrition or training, that they don't see results in 1 to 2 weeks, and so they just quit. And fitness is one of those things. That's why people in fitness who are fit have so much respect, because that automatically displays, it's a walking billboard that you have discipline, that you are willing to stick with things for the long term, and you're willing to do things regardless of how you feel or, what your circumstances are. So that's why, doing the right things the right way at the right time for the right amount of time specifically is one of the biggest lessons I've learned, especially in this last year. Number two, I'm going to go right into it. So build your aerobic base. Now, this is one of the lessons. Now, I just did one with cadence. This is one thing I've learned a lot the last year. This is one of the first things I learned, especially when I started first competing. So this is something I've known about for about the last 15 years or so. And having a solid aerobic base is essential for performance, recovery, and longevity. And the reason being is the word aerobic literally means with oxygen. Now, a lot of people think that aerobic, that just simply means cardio. And there's a difference between aerobic and cardiovascular, because cardiovascular just implies you're using the heart and lungs a lot for your training, whereas aerobic means that you're actually using oxygen as your main primary fuel source. So when we're doing this, this allows for better recovery, not only between training sessions, but specifically between training sets. And I found people who have a really solid aerobic base can take on more volume. And if someone can take on more volume per training session, then guess what? Then they get fitter faster. So that is kind of like the very easy version of the science behind it. And one tactical thing that you can do today to take away from the small section of the podcast is to start slow and to start small. Your heart rate shouldn't get too jacked up. I know that in CrossFit, we think that the only way to get results is to have a super high heart rate the entire time. And that's not necessarily the case. You can, build your fitness alongside CrossFit by also doing something somewhat the opposite, which is having your heart rate slightly above a warm-up pace. So we're kind of talking in the 120 range, depending on where you're at in terms of your age and your fitness training. But, start off with about 10 minutes a day. And just go, but you want to be above a warm-up pace. So it shouldn't be super easy. It should be aggressive enough to where, you are sweating a little bit, but you can hold a conversation, and your heart rate should be in that 120, 130 range, give or take, depending on who you are as an individual. And in terms of accumulating how many minutes per week is you want about 150 minutes per week minimum of aerobic work. Okay. And that will build mitochondria, which is the powerhouse energy in your cells. And the more mitochondria you have, the more efficient you'll be in your CrossFit workouts and the more energy you'll have overall. And I do find that when my aerobic base is solid and when I'm working on it, I do have more energy throughout the day. I sleep better, etc. And I find that when I'm not training my aerobic base, that my heart rate in between sets of lifting is more elevated, and it's harder to recover between training sessions as well. So if you want more details on that, feel free to talk to me one-on-one. I'd be more than happy to chat more about it, nerd out on it with you, or find a plan that will work best for you for building that aerobic base. Number 3, we're going to talk about scaling up, which is tailoring the fitness journey to the individual. And again, this is one of those things that I learned from a very early time, probably about 15 years ago, of when I first started training people, is realizing that it wasn't working for me to just project my training programs or my training style onto someone else. And what I mean by that is that I would look at whatever the client's goal was, or whatever their circumstances were, or whatever they ultimately wanted, and I made adjustments on the principles and my methodology to accommodate them and what they wanted. And that was a huge game changer, not only for my business, but also getting people results and for them actually sticking with it. Because I think a lot of young coaches, or just coaches in general, get really, they become purist about a certain methodology, and they project that onto their clients, and they're like, hey, you need to do this no matter what, when that's not necessarily the case. There's always room for flexibility, especially when you're training people who have full-time jobs, they have kids and everything. Their circumstances aren't the same as an Olympic athlete, so you cannot train them like a CrossFit Games athlete or a professional athlete. You have to train them, come down to where they're at, meet them where they're at, and then take them where they actually want to go, rather than just being like, well, we're doing 1,000 pull-ups today and we're just going to smash you into the ground and hope it works. Well, no, and this is why our retention rate is so well. So one of the numbers that I pulled up recently, we have an average length of engagement at our gym of 29 months. That's over 2 years. And the average person sticks with the gym only about 3 to 6 months. And that's just across the industry for just fitness. That includes Globo gyms as well. So with that said, it's the most important part of any training program is adherence. Okay. So it's just a fancy term for being that the workout actually gets done. And to make it sure that that workout gets done is that it needs to be enjoyable, it needs to be tailored towards that individual. It also needs to be scalable for that individual, and make sure that, you work them hard enough to where they feel it and you kind of push their boundaries a bit, but you don't overdo it with them. And this is part of the reason why at our gym, at least in our group classes, that we have those 4 different levels. We have RX, we have Fitness Plus now, and we have RX Plus, because it accommodates people at the different levels. And then from there, we even mix and match. And, if you go to the gym, you already know this, but I'm just speaking for people who don't currently go to our gym. Because, we don't want anyone to stick to something that won't benefit them in the long run, or even what they want. We like to give people options, and we want to make their workout actually enjoyable, because as we all know, if we actually enjoy something, guess what? Then more likely we are to repeat it. Moving on to number 4, stronger together, the role of community. Now, I used to be When I first started getting into competitive CrossFit and I was really into the whole individual program design part, I didn't think community was a huge deal. And community is another word, just like consistency, that is thrown out there and just like, we have a great community. All right, well, great. But people don't sign up for community. They sign up to get fit. But it's a combination of both. And I've really learned that it's a blend of both. And what it does is that definitely it fosters, accountability and growth. And when you have a culture of support and friendly competition at a gym, I'm not saying you have to be super competitive. I mean, just friendly competition, just something a little bit fun, just to make it, it's always fun to have kind of a measuring stick. Um, and also what it allows you to do is actually have milestones and benchmarks for yourself because, especially when I first started CrossFit, I competed with myself. I did it I started going solo. So every time I would repeat a workout, I would just look at what I did last time because I would log all my workouts and be like, okay, I'm just going to try and beat what I did last time. So I was just competing with myself. And, I really did find that when I did finally get into a community, it was fun because I got a chance to work out with people doing the exact same workout as me. And it was fun because you have that shared relatability with someone because they went through the exact same you did. Even if they did it scaled, even if they did it way more advanced than you, the workout still feels exactly the same regardless. Like as someone who's done CrossFit for 17 going on 18 years now and been coaching for 17 plus years now, that it never gets easier and it still feels the same as my first CrossFit workout. I just gotten better. But in terms of the actual feeling, it's still the same. And so I can relate to people who, who are below me, and then also can relate to people who are doing much better than me. And it's great right now because I'm at a level in my fitness where I'm kind of in the middle ground, and it's really fun to see people at my gym beating me in workouts because that just means that it just reaffirms that what I'm doing is working because if they're getting better, then I'm getting better and we're all doing it together. And when you do things together collectively as a group, the further you'll go because you're more, again, just like with the, with mixing and matching and customizing a training program, the more enjoyable it is and the more you can share it with other people, the more likely you are to stick with it. Number 5 is adapt and overcome. So this is similar to the tailoring the fitness journey, and this adapt and overcome is something that I'm still learning to do currently, and it's switching things much faster. So I realized that a lot of times through my coaching and business and fitness career that I wouldn't adapt quick enough, and that would actually hold me back. So a good example is me doing more social media and me doing the podcast. Like if I would have started this when it was kind of like earlier, when I kind of thought that was a good idea, which was like 2015, 2014, I probably would have, benefit from that. But I was kind of like, no, this whole social media thing isn't gonna help my gym, so I'm not gonna focus on that one. Then now 2 years ago, started working on it, and lo and behold, it's really helped my gym and helped my members a ton, and people are getting better results, and people are happier. The information we put out there is more helpful. And so also in a training context, in a coaching context, I used to be too dogmatic about the CrossFit approach. Once I learned more about program design, I realized, we can incorporate bicep curls and accessory work and hamstring curls and isolation work and dedicated aerobic work, and people can still get results. In fact, it actually makes them better at CrossFit. I learned that way too late as well. And especially even in my coaching, like I talked about how I was too much of a purist when it came to CrossFit, and I just projected my training style onto someone else rather than tailoring it to the person individually. So being flexible with your approach is probably one of the most important things that I've learned way too late, and something that I'm still trying to do. I try and adapt much faster, because the definition of intelligence is simply a change of behavior. So if someone slaps me in the face, if someone holds up a red card and they slap me in the face, and they hold up a red card again and I slap me in the face, and the third time they hold up a red card and then finally I duck, I learned. But if I keep on sitting there, getting slapped in the face, I didn't learn. I didn't change my behavior. And so that's something I kind of tell myself too. Am I repeatedly getting slapped in the face? And should I adapt and overcome much quicker? And so those are just some questions that have come up. And this is something I've been working on for a long time. I'm still currently working on, just because it's really easy for me to get set in my own ways. Number 6 is stay injury free. Now, this is an obvious one, but this one again is a more recent one that happened the last 18 months. So quick story that I tweaked my knee on a snatch. It wasn't anything serious, no pop, no nothing. It just swelled up. And And for 18 months, it would come and go. Like, it would go back to 100%. I start squatting in, it would flare up for 2 weeks, and I couldn't squat for 2 weeks. This would go back and forth for 18 months. And then finally, I did see a PT about it. They said that it was just tight, nothing wrong with it. I'm like, okay, well, that's not helpful. And then I saw another PT, Dr. Becca Coppell. Boo woo, big shout out to Becca. One of our members, she's awesome. And she looked at it and she's like, Matt, your right hip and your right IT band is super tight. That's why it's getting so inflamed, because it's pulling on your IT band. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm an idiot. And again, this goes back to the whole me being stupid and the whole adapt and overcome, because I was just being a typical dude and being like, just kind of ignoring it and hoping to go away on its own and not being proactive. But then once I finally started rolling out on it, I spent 3 weeks just rolling only on my IT band multiple times a day. It took me 3 weeks, by the way, to get all the tension out of it, which is a lot. And I did that multiple times a day, probably accumulated about an hour a day for 21 days. That was painful. And then worked on my hip as well. Then I started stretching more, specifically doing more butterfly stretches, more straddle stretches. And then guess what? Lo and behold, my knee's at 100%. I'm squatting now. I'm having a great time. I'm back in classes, going 100%. I'm 100% confidence as well. So definitely don't do what I did. And this is coming from someone who's a coach. I do this full time. Definitely incorporate mobility work, recovery, foam rolling. I know it's boring. I know it sucks, but start off again, just like with the aerobic work, start off with something small, something attainable. Just be like, I'm just going to foam roll my IT band for 90 seconds each side. Just start with there. That's 3 minutes total. You can invest in that. That's totally fine. And all those little things that you do for recovery will compound and will keep you injury free, because at the end of the day, we're all training for the same thing, which is longevity. And I want to add 10 years to everybody's life. That's my goal at my gym, is that if you can spend 1 hour here 5 to 6 days a week, and that adds 10 years to your life, to where you can spend it with your grandchildren or hang out with the people you love and enjoy life without any assistance or medication. That is my end game. And then this is one of the most important lessons that I've learned recently and throughout my entire career, is that staying injury free is extremely important, because if you're injured, guess what? You don't enjoy the workouts as much because you're modifying or you're scaling, or you won't work out at all. And we've seen that happen a lot. So stay injury free, be intelligent, and for the most part, everybody makes very intelligent choices at my gym when they're doing workouts and they're scaling appropriately, which is fantastic. But the one thing that we can all do a better job of is foam rolling, stretching, and doing more recovery work. I don't care how you do it. Again, if you need strategies, that's highly individual. So come talk to me. I'd be more than happy to chat with you about it. Now, number 7 is keep learning the edge of education. So I've gone through many different seasons of my coaching and business and fitness career of going through learning. So I started with program design. I started with assessment. Then I kind of moved on from there to trying all these different training programs and methodologies. Any major training program out there, I probably tried it, even outside the CrossFit realm. And then I got a lot of I've been focusing a lot on business education the last 2 years. So I go through different seasons. And this is a huge lesson that I learned, is that it's okay to kind of go through seasons of, when you're learning something, it's okay to be biased towards one thing for a while and then move on to another. And then that's okay, because again, it's going to compound. And the role of ongoing education keeps things interesting, because there's always something that I can learn. And that this kind of comes back to me being more adaptable and realizing that I don't know everything, because every time I think I know something, I'll learn something new and be like, wow, I'm an idiot. And this happens over and over again. And then I try and implement something that I learn as quickly as possible. So, specific courses or books that I've done. I really enjoyed the OPEX program design course. That really got me going on my fitness journey in terms of program design, especially learning traditional strength and conditioning principles outside of CrossFit. Books, The Poliquin Principles by Charles Poliquin. That's where I learned all about tempo, pauses, supersets, rest periods, progressive overload, all that fun stuff. And some of the biggest impacts that I've had on my coaching was going to, the CrossFit seminars. CrossFit Level 2 at the time was great when I first started, because I went to that right before I opened my gym back in 2012. And I learned how to actually coach a class there. And then now from there, I'm still working on my business education, and I listen to a ton of business podcasts, and I'm part of a gym mastermind group as well, which is really helpful because we're always bouncing ideas off of each other on how we can be better gym owners and help people become the best version of themselves. And yeah, that's a big thing that I've learned, that is, I'm always continually trying to get better by learning more, and it's fun to learn more. Number 8 is fueling results, nutrition essentials. Now, nutrition is something that I'm not a huge fan of, not in terms of I don't like it, but in terms of, like, I don't get a lot of fulfillment out of coaching nutrition. I don't think a lot of people actually enjoy being told what to eat. Um, but, you know, I've progressively gotten more better at my nutrition over time, and this is something that you need to attach an appropriate timeline to, because you're not just going to overnight be someone who's going to go from eating bad or eating fast food to suddenly eating 100% healthy. And I had a very long evolution to the point where you find what works, you find what doesn't, and you work from there. Um, so the role of nutrition in body composition results is obvious. And one of the biggest things that I've learned is that, you don't really need to track macros. You really don't need to even worry about habits. I mean, I guess you do, but let's be real, your habits are crap. Yeah, sorry, I had to say it. Um, but I found that there's just the more you can actually take away in terms of, like, complicating things for nutrition, the easier it is for everybody, including myself as a coach. So one of the big things I learned is always focus on protein, and specifically to get half your body weight in grams of protein in before noon. That is one of the best things that I've learned, that I've implemented into my nutrition, and I hope that helps you too. So for example, I weigh 200 pounds, so I try and eat 100 grams of protein before noon every day. And I'll do an entire podcast later on my entire nutrition and supplement schedule, but I'm not going to go into that now. But that's probably one of the best things I learned. Number 2 is part in terms of the nutrition, is that carbs really aren't the enemy, as long as you're fueling with carbs that aren't processed, especially when you do something high intensity like CrossFit. You need to replenish those glycogen stores, because I've gone through so many phases of low carb diets. I tried a modified version of carnivore about a year ago. And it was good. My body composition was decent, but my energy levels were low in the workout because I wasn't eating that many carbs. I've also done zone diet. I've done paleo. Um, and what I really learned is that there's really no fad diet or any diet or really diet that is good. And when you really break these down, that most of these diets that you see, everything from keto to zone nutrition, whatever, paleo, whatever the popular thing is or was, is that all just comes down to caloric restriction. And when you're in a calorie deficit, of course you're going to lose weight, because you're cutting out whole food groups, or you're modifying them. So what I found is that as long as I'm eating balanced, I'm not eating processed foods, and I'm focusing on consuming my body weight in grams of protein, specifically half of it before noon, and my carb sources are not processed, and I'm making sure that my meal timing is good. So I eat about every 3 to 4 hours. Then good things happen. My energy levels are good. My body composition is good. And I don't overcomplicate it. I don't really track my macros. I just kind of go from there. So and some examples that we've seen with this, specifically Keelan was a client that I worked with recently one-on-one, and he dropped well, how much was it? He dropped about 8% body fat in 4 weeks, specifically because we've mainly focused on protein, reducing his processed foods, and he slept more. So he's only sleeping like 3 to 5 hours a night. So he started getting 7 to 8. He was eating almost no protein. He's eating mostly processed foods. And then what we did, we just flip-flopped it very slowly. We're like, hey, what kind of proteins do you like? Okay, well, I want you to eat this much every day, specifically half your body weight in grams before noon. He's like, okay, I'll do it. And guess what? He's one of those people who did the right things the right way at the right time for the right amount of time. And guess what? He drops that body fat percentage very quickly in 4 weeks. Man, that was intense. But enough with nutrition. I'll do a whole nother podcast for you guys, diving into what I do specifically, some of my recipes, my go-to meal preps, and all this, my entire supplement regimen as well. I'll do that at a later time. So there's my little teaser for you. Number 9 is coaching with empathy. Now, again, this is our early lesson I learned, thank God, was that when I first started out, I know that those of you who know me now, I'm a little bit nicer. But there's a lot of I don't even there's probably some of you who remember me when I was super mean. But even before I even opened my gym, I could be kind of a dick, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I was one of those coaches that would project my expectations onto my clients and be like, "Well, if you're not good at this, then you suck." I wouldn't actually say that, but I would kinda have that demeanor, and I wouldn't be as empathetic because I didn't realize that because when you're 22, like, you don't have very many responsibilities, let's be real. I didn't have kids. I didn't have really a quote unquote real job, I guess you could say. And I could work out for 3 or 4 hours a day. So I wasn't very empathetic because I couldn't relate to people. And then as I became a dad, as I became an adult, and as I became a better business owner and a better husband and a better person in general, at least I hope, at least I'm trying to be, is I learned that people's circumstances definitely change and that it's not easy for everybody, especially if just depending on their background and all the other factors of, how they grew up, all those things. And when you learn that and then you become more empathetic. Um, so I've really learned to not I do my best to not make judgments very quickly. I try and give the person the benefit of the doubt. And I also try immediately go into problem solving mode of how can I help this person? Because, a lot of you don't know this, but I was one of those people who hated the gym. Like, you couldn't pay me to work out in high school. I sat there during the weight room time and I didn't even do anything. And I surprisingly never got in trouble. But, but I know what it's like to be that person who is super intimidated of the gym, who doesn't want to be told what to eat, who just wants to sit and play video games and watch TV and wants to be lazy. I've been that person before, and I've slowly over time became a different person, and that can happen for anyone I work with too. And now that I realize, I always try and take myself back to how I was even before I first started fitness. And that really helps me be more empathetic with people and realizing that, like, hey, I've been there. I know what it's like. I know this is hard. You can do this. And it's going to be hard for a while, but that's okay because it will get easier. But you have to do it every day. And so that's a huge lesson I learned early on, is just being more empathetic with people and having that connection with them, because at the end of the day, again, we want the same thing. And also, they're more likely to sustain it and to stick with it if they actually enjoy it. And if they enjoy the person they're working with, guess what? They're going to show up even more because they're like, wow, this person actually cares about me and actually wants me to succeed. And that's worth showing up for. And I really do truly want everyone who I work with to succeed. Number 10, we're going to move on to tracking progress for data-driven results. Okay, so again, I'm not a math person. I've never been a math person, but tracking metrics is a huge, huge game changer that I've learned. When I first started CrossFit, I did log all my workouts because I was obsessed with getting better. So, and then now that I own a business, I track all my metrics for my business. I also want to track metrics for my clients in terms of body composition and their benchmarks as well, because this specifically, at least as of today, helps us design the next training cycle. So those of you who don't go to our gym, we run training cycles anywhere as short as 4 to 6, or as short as 4 weeks and as long as 16-week training cycles. And what we do is we look at all the data that our members log, we track it, and we're like, okay, what are some holes that we need to fill? Where are some holes in the bucket? And what are some things that are going well? And so anything that's going well, we still touch on it to make sure we don't lose it. But then anything that needs extra work, we really emphasize, and we kind of actually try and add a little more volume to, or add some more variations to as well. And also in terms of body metrics or body composition metrics, is we like to scan our clients about every 30 days. So again, if you're listening to this and you go to my gym, please book a time to meet with me and get a scan in, because I just want to see your data. Again, not trying to make you feel bad. In fact, if you've been showing it consistently, you probably have made some great progress. Oh, great. Real quick, pause. Quick shout out to Cynthia. She lost 20 pounds. She lost 20 pounds in about the last 3 months. And she was someone who was really struggling and needs some help. And when I talked to her and we got her signed up, we got her through Ramp Up, we just scanned her today. She lost 20 pounds and she's doing awesome. I'm so proud of you, Cynthia. So keep up the hard work. So it just allows us to be like, is our training program actually working? Now, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes that's when we know to pivot. But we know that if people are getting results consistently, we know if people are gaining muscle and losing body fat percentage, that we're doing something right and the client is doing something right as well. Because if they're not seeing results and they're showing up consistently, then we're failing them because we need to help them on the back end more. And then this really allows us to do that because, we can't control what you do outside the gym. But when we do see your data, we're like, okay, you're showing up 5 to 6 times a week. You're working really hard, but how's your sleep? How's your nutrition? Okay. Oh, you're only eating, 50 grams of protein a day. Well, there's your problem. That's why you're not putting on muscle, and that's why you're retaining a lot of fat. Oh, you're only sleeping 4 hours a night. You're under high stress as well. So these small things, we're not here to judge you. We're here to simply help you and to give you more strategy. Now, I like to call the Gore Use more of a strategy session where I can just sit down with someone and be like, hey, how can we make this easier for you to get results faster? Like I always try and make things as easy as possible and give people tactical things that are really easy to digest that they can implement that day themselves. And without data, we can't do that. So data tracking is probably one of the most important things that I've learned, especially in terms of benchmarks and body composition, because it allows us to change things on the fly very quickly. Number 11. Lead by example. Now, this one is probably the easiest one that I've done because I love working out. I'm not going to lie. I've gone through phases, believe me. I'm a human being. I've gone through phases where I haven't liked working out, but it's pretty obvious that if you were to join my gym and I were overweight, that you probably wouldn't want to join. So this one goes out for all you coaches and other gym owners. If you're listening to this, please stay in shape. Please lead by example and be a good representative of what you started in the first place and what you believe in, because at the end of the day, you are the walking billboard of your gym. And I expect all my coaches to be like that. And I expect myself to be like that. And I hold my team to a high standard when it comes to fitness, because it is our responsibility to live the lifestyle that we advocate. And if we're not doing that, then how can we have any kind of a trust with our clientele to actually follow the same suit? Like if I'm not doing the things that I'm telling you to do, how is there any kind of mutual respect there? There isn't. So it is my responsibility to make sure that I stay fit and that I do all the things that I'm telling everybody else to do. That's also a huge reason why I work out with classes as well. Kind of going back to the data-driven results of the previous one, is that I like to work out with my classes specifically because I can feel the energy. I can also see if, am I currently seeing results from this? What would I change? Because, if I'm a chef or own a restaurant, I don't even eat my own food, then how can I actually know it's good? So when I do it, I'm like, would I pay for this? And I always want to make sure that I would be willing to pay for my own service. And if I'm not, then I need to make it better. I need to add more value. I need to give more to my members, and I need to make things better. And so, and those of you who have given me feedback in the past, really appreciate you, because that's a huge reason of our success today and why we've been in business for 12 years is because we're trying to take feedback seriously and making sure that we're giving everyone the best that they deserve. So enough of leading by example. That one's pretty obvious, but stay fit. Please don't be a fat coach or a fat gym owner. It's embarrassing. Number 12, learn from wins and setbacks. Now, I used to think that setbacks were just sucky things, but I realized that I can't really enjoy the wins without the bad things happening to me. Specifically, the one thing that comes back to me is COVID. So long story short, that during this time in 2020, we all know about COVID, obviously, but basically worst timing in the world, that my landlord decided not to renew my lease. I was there for 8 years. And so in 2020, we had to move the gym, which was a terrible time because no landlords wanted gyms at the time because we all thought we're all going to go out of business. We actually weren't even legally allowed to operate. So none of them would even entertain the idea. Even though we had some decent financials to back it up, they didn't want to work with me. So we finally settled on the one place that would take us, which is the spot we're currently in. And I remember being like, super stressed out because pretty much more than half of our entire growth monthly revenue would go just to rent. That doesn't include payroll, doesn't include utilities, doesn't include doesn't include the deductions that we take to pay for our rent and our food. So I was super stressed out in 2020, 2021. But then that prompted me to take action and to hire a business coach and to be better, to actually learn and be better at business. And that's what really helped form the gym into what we are today, because it really made us step up our game in terms of our service and the value we bring to our members and our clients. And another example of learning from wins and setbacks is that my first CrossFit competition that I ever did in terms of a fitness contest, so I gave you a business one. Now I'll give you a fitness one. Was that the first competition I ever did was the 2010 CrossFit Games sectionals at UCLA, and I did terrible. I thought I was really fit. Thought I was so good at CrossFit. I kind of a big ego back then, as you can tell. I still kind of do, I guess. And I got smashed. I did not do well at all. I finished like maybe 60th. I don't even remember what the standings were, but I know that they weren't good. And that prompted me, but finishing so poorly made me realize of how much work that I actually had to do to get better. And then from there, I went on to go to regionals 3 times after that. And now I coach. I ended up getting the honor of coaching some high-level regional athletes back in the day. Kind of step back from that now just to focus on my gym and focus on my current members, because they need my help more than a big-time competitor. And that really helped me breed resilience. Both those 2 examples. Those are the 2 big ones I can think of in terms of my fitness and in terms of what happened at the gym. And overcoming those setbacks really was what actually propelled me into where I am today. Because without that, without 2010 happening to me at the sectionals, then I wouldn't have turned into the competitor that I ended up being. I mean, I could have been a lot better, but I still did pretty decent. And the same thing with the COVID situation. That really made me resilient as a business owner and as a leader, was that, when you're backed into a corner, sometimes that can be the best thing for you, because you truly get to see what kind of a person you are. Are you the kind of person that is going to grovel and get shut down and you're going to be a little crybaby and a little bitch, or are you going to do something about it? And in both those times, I was being kind of a little whiny bitch, but I pulled through and I became more resilient because of it. And and it's really important also to celebrate those small victories along the way, because it's really easy to get caught up in things and be like, well, I did this, but then you throw a negative spin on it. I'm sure that I do this to me all the time. I know you do too. It's like, oh, I hit that. I nailed 10 pull-ups unbroken a day, but I did it, not in a workout. So you always find a way to put a negative spin on it. But really, you got to celebrate every little thing that you do, because everything will compound over time, and then you'll always get better. And the value of embracing both wins and failures is part of the growth journey, right? So because without both, then you definitely can't enjoy the wins, right? Because if we won all the time, then guess what? It would be very boring. So the setbacks are just as important, and that's a lesson I'm still learning today as well. But yeah, that's all I got for you today. So I really hope you enjoyed this. I hope this was helpful. Do me a favor, and if you did like this kind of style, just let me know. Shoot me a comment, or just talk to me at the gym, or leave me a 5-star review or something like that. Whatever floats your boat. That'd be really helpful, because I continually want to make good content for you and actually be helpful and relevant. So if this resonated with you, just let me know somehow. And again, thank you so much for listening. If this was helpful, please leave us a 5-star review so we know to make more content just like this. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Red Wolf CrossFit, and DM your content suggestions there. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, good luck. Have fun. Nailed it.